How does a man hack the lottery for years, pocketing untold amounts of cash all under the noses of the authorities? Rob Sand sat at his desk in the Iowa Attorney General's office reviewing case files. Suddenly, his boss dropped a heavy folder on his desk. "See if you can figure this one out," he said. It was a case about a $16.5 million lottery ticket that was purchased and claimed under suspicious circumstances. Little did Sand know, in the coming months he would be tangled in a web of lies and deception. All Sand had to go on for the case was a grainy surveillance recording of the person who had bought the $16.5 million lottery ticket. The date of the video was December 23, 2010, and it was almost 4 years prior to when Sand received the case file. In the video, a man wearing a hoodie pulled over his head and a baseball cap enters the Quick Trip convenience store in Des Moines, Iowa. He purchases 2 hot dogs, a fountain drink, and a lottery ticket. The suspect and the cashier talked briefly before the suspicious man receives his change, walks back to his SUV, and leaves the gas station holding a hot lotto ticket with the numbers 3, 12, 16, 26, 33, 11 on it. 6 days later, that ticket would be worth $16.5 million. 3 months after the numbers were announced, no one had claimed the prize. 6 more months passed and still no winning ticket was cashed in. Hundreds of people claimed they were the winners, saying they either lost their ticket or it was stolen. But based on the security footage, no one matched the description of the man who purchased the winning hot lotto ticket the night of December 23rd. The ticket could be turned in up to a year after the numbers were drawn. After that, the money would be forfeited. Each time the lotto issued a public reminder of this, more people tried to claim the prize. Then, on November 9, 2011, just over a month before the ticket was to expire, a lawyer from Quebec phoned down the Iowa lottery, claiming he had the winning ticket. This man was able to give the correct 15-digit serial number on the ticket. His name was Philip Johnston, but he was not the man on the security camera. When pressed for answers about how he ended up with the ticket, Johnston hung up the phone. He called back a few days later and admitted he was helping a client claim the money who did not wish to be identified. This alone made the entire situation suspicious, but what happened next raised all sorts of red flags, and it was the main reason the case ended up on the Attorney General's desk. According to Iowa lottery rules, the identities of all winners must be made public. The lawyer refused to divulge the name of his client, and the two parties were at an impasse. Weeks went by, and less than 2 hours before the ticket needed to be claimed, lawyers from a large legal firm in Des Moines showed up at the Iowa Lottery headquarters holding the winning hot lotto ticket. These big-shot lawyers were claiming the ticket on behalf of a trust. The trust's beneficiary was a corporation located in Belize that was run by none other than Philip Johnston, the attorney from Quebec who had tried to claim the prize money a month prior. It was at this point the chief executive of the Iowa Lottery opened an official investigation that was now Rob Sand's problem. In order to get more information on the mysterious hooded man from 2010, Sand released the surveillance footage from the gas station. With it was a number to call if anyone had information regarding the person in the video. Days went by with no tips. Then a call came in from the main lottery office who identified the voice in the surveillance video as belonging to a man who audited their office a few years back. Sand had a break in the case, but it was the next call that came in which led him down a path to who the mysterious man really was. Members of the Iowa Lottery office informed Sand that they too recognized the voice on the video. It belonged to the Information Security Director and Programmer for the Multi-State Lottery Association. This man's name was Eddie Tipton. The Multi-State Lottery Association was in charge of lotteries in 33 states, based in a Des Moines suburb, and he ran the hot lotto that paid $16.5 million to the unknown winner in Sand's case. Now he had a name. All he had to do was find the right person that it belonged to. Eddie Tipton was described as a friendly man who was slightly paranoid and always wanted people to like him. As a programmer, he worked long, grueling hours for the Multi-State Lottery Association, often putting in 60-plus hours a week. His main responsibilities were to write software, update the network security and firewalls for the association, and to review security threats for the games under the Multi-State Lottery Association umbrella. When Tipton was accused of being the man in the security video, many of his fellow employees couldn't believe it. It was illegal for someone who worked for the association to play the lottery for obvious reasons. To them, Tipton was an easygoing man who was fun at the office parties and nice to everyone. Luckily for Sand, Tipton was not difficult to track down. He was arrested in January of 2015 at his office and charged with 2 felony accounts of fraud. The suspicious lottery ticket had been bought by Tipton, which made the case a classic inside job. But how did he do it? How had Eddie Tipton been able to buy a ticket with the exact winning numbers when the lottery was supposed to be randomized in a way that no one could know the outcome ahead of time? The working theory for the prosecution was that Tipton had installed a rootkit malware program into the lottery computer system via a flash drive. However, they couldn't find any evidence of the malicious program in the system. It would seem that either they were wrong and Tipton had found a very different way to manipulate the lottery, or something else was going on. On July 20, 2015, the jury found Eddie Tipton guilty. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. However, when Sand returned to his desk, he couldn't help but feel like he missed something. From working in the DA's office for several years now and having major success early in his career, he knew that intelligent criminals like Tipton were rarely caught on their first crime. Also, something strange had happened during the trial. Once the prosecution brought up the malware theory, the defense changed tactics. They tried to confuse the jury with technical jargon and claimed the prosecution was using the malware as a red herring since they didn't have any hard evidence to support their claims. The defense also demanded a 90-day speedy trial. This tactic is often done so the prosecution has less time to investigate before a trial concludes. Something just didn't feel right to Sand. He couldn't help but think that maybe there were other winning lottery tickets that had been manipulated by Tipton. Sand decided to dig deeper and see just how far the fraud went. As Sand contemplated the ramifications of Tipton's years of working in the lotto system, the phone rang. On the other end was a man with a southern drawl. He asked, "Did y'all know that Eddie's brother Tommy Tipton won the lottery, maybe about 10 years back?" Sand's stomach dropped. His mouth hung open as he thought about how much money Tipton may have funneled to family and friends if he had been manipulating the lottery for over 10 years. Sand thanked the man for the tip and immediately got to work. He and his team of investigators sifted through lottery records going back a decade. Once they'd compiled a list of around 45,000 names, they began to cross-reference them with Tipton's known family and friends. The first big coincidence that the team came across was a winner of $783,257.72 in the Megabucks game in Wisconsin. But the large sum of money wasn't what caught the investigators' eyes. It was the date that the lotto ticket had won. It was the exact same date as Tipton's ticket, but 3 years earlier, on December 29, 2007. When the investigators looked at the name, they were shocked. The person who had won was Rover Rhodes, and he was Eddie Tipton's best friend. The next breakthrough came when Sand was working during the holiday season at his parents' house. He was searching over some more of the lottery winners' names in the spreadsheet that the team had created. Sand noticed a familiar last name. Kyle Kahn from Texas had won $644,478 in the Oklahoma lottery, and when the name was cross-referenced with Tipton's friends on Facebook, they found a match. Tipton's phone records were looked into further, and Kyle Kahn's number came up multiple times. On the very same day that Tipton had bought his lottery ticket, 2 other people bought winning lottery tickets in Kansas. These 2 people were friends of Eddie Tipton. When interviewed by authorities, it was found that Tipton had actually bought the winning tickets himself, but since he couldn't claim them, he asked friends to turn them in for a cut of the money. Sand and his team had done it. They found several instances of lottery winners who were all connected to Eddie Tipton. It was clear that he had been carrying out this lottery scheme for several years and had, in effect, stolen millions of dollars from the system. But the question still remained, how did he do it? This was driving Sand crazy. He needed to find the exact mechanism to ensure that something like this would never happen again. The problem was that Tipton wasn't going to spill a secret, and all the machines that Tipton had hacked were either wiped clean before the investigation had started or were retired and dismantled. It seemed like a dead end. But then Sand got another break. Someone had found a number of random number generator computers used for the 2007 lottery in the storage facility. A programming expert was brought in named Sean McClendon, and he had a plan to reverse engineer the software on the machines to find the malware that allowed Tipton to predict the outcome of the lottery. Several days later, Sand received an email from McClendon with 21 lines of code. He had found the malware that Tipton had snuck into the system. It wasn't very long, which means it didn't alter the file size of the program in any meaningful way. Also, the code was sitting in plain sight. However, unless someone was looking for it like McClendon was, it would have never been found. The program that Tipton inserted into the lottery system's code was called QVRNG.DLL, or Quantum Vision Random Number Generator. The way it worked was genius. The Multi-State Lottery Association's random number generators operated by using a Geiger counter to measure radioactive isotope americium-241 in the air at a random time. This measurement would consist of a long string of numbers that would be fed into the computer system. The program would then choose a line of numbers based on the radiation measurement. Once this was all done, the computer would display the digits and they would be the winning lottery numbers for the drawing. Theoretically, this made it impossible for anyone to cheat because there was no way to know what the Geiger counter reading would be, how it was going to be randomized, and which series of numbers would be displayed. What Tipton's code did was narrow a series of parameters to make the numbers that could be selected much smaller. Eddie Tipton never knew what the order of the numbers would be, but his malware was able to restrict the options, limiting the randomized choices from 10,939,383 sets down to only a few hundred. That meant if Tipton and his friends purchased all the possible outcomes, they They would end up spending a few $100s on tickets, but would almost be guaranteed to win. Therefore, they would make their money back plus thousands or even millions more. Tipton's code worked, and he was able to make huge sums of money off the lottery just by buying a few hundred tickets. Sometimes he would purchase these himself, other times he would give family and friends the series of possible winning numbers, and they would buy their own tickets. Sand brought everything he had discovered to Tipton and his lawyer to make a deal. Although it would be hard to bring legal action against some of Tipton's friends, they could still be dragged to court and may even be sentenced. Therefore, Sand offered Eddie Tipton a plea agreement where he would confess to how he pulled off the largest lottery scam in history, and in return, his brother would only spend 75 days in jail while the rest of his friends wouldn't be prosecuted. As part of the plea deal, Tipton was sentenced to 25 years in prison. He also had to pay $2.2 million in restitution to all the state lotteries he scammed. Even though his attorney claimed Tipton only pocketed around $350,000 in total, the rest of the money is held by friends and family who turned in the tickets for him. This meant there may be millions of dollars never recovered from the manipulation of a lottery system by Eddie Tipton. Now watch what happened to lottery winners who won, or check out how this couple won $26 million using lottery math.